Affairs Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. Ted Yoho, I should say.
No problem.
I'm sorry, I had Ted Lieu earlier, Ted Yoho right now. Congressman Ted Yoho, sorry for the confusion. Thanks so much for joining us.
He's the better looking one, I know.
There's two Teds. All right, let's talk a little bit about the news that's coming in today.
Sure.
Do you believe Michael Cohen does have information on those tapes that potentially could seriously damage the president?
I believe he has information on those tapes. Right now, it's all hypothetical and innuendos. We don't know what's out there. There's a lot of conjecture. So let's wait till we see what's on those before we go down different rabbit holes.
That's a fair point. Well, let's move on and talk about the president's summit in Helsinki with Putin. Should the next summit that the White House now says the invitation has gone forward to Putin to come to Washington, come to the White House in the fall, should that go forward even if we don't know, the American public doesn't really know what happened during that first meeting?
All right. I'm not so concerned what happened in there. I mean, a lot of times these leaders meet and they discuss things that doesn't go public initially. We'll find out later. You know, the thing I'm concerned about, and this, I came out publicly and said that Russia did intervene in or interfere in our election process. That is not tolerable. And I think with what you reported earlier and what we've seen with these three other candidates being already hacked this year, if indeed this does go back to Russians that are in the Russian military or government, absolutely not. I don't think we should invite President Putin over here at this time. I do agree that we should have relationships with all leaders of all nations, but if it's something like this so soon after the election of the last election, and Russian meddling is still going on, I think we need to bring an end to it and send a strong signal.
Yeah, because even the top intelligence officials, Dan Coates, the director of national intelligence, Mike Pompeo, the former CIA director, and now the Secretary of State, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, they say not only did the Russians do it in 2016, but they're continuing to do it now, and they're gearing up for the midterm elections in November. So what I hear you saying is if they are right, that this meeting should not go forward, this second summit. Is that right, Congressman?
Yeah, I would have to be leaning to that side, and I think more sanctions need to go forward. But keep in mind, they've been meddling with us for 70, 80 years, and they're going to continue to do that. If it's not the Russians, it's going to be the Chinese or the North Koreans or another state actor. This is something we have to come together as Americans and protect our constitutional republic and the democratic process that we use to elect our leaders. This is off limits for all nations, and that's why I just introduced, well, actually it just passed on the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Cybersecurity Deterrence Act, and it ties in with Ed Royce's bill on cybersecurity, and they're going to be fast-tracked through the House so that we get this into law so these other nations don't mess with us, because these are what we're going to do. And so it's a very timely time to do this.
Here's what a lot of Democrats are asking. If you're that concerned about cyber security, why did you vote? Why did the Republicans vote against that legislation that would beef up with a lot of money cyber security?
Because they had some other stuff that were in there that weren't pertinent, and it was just a messaging bill on their side. Ours is a bipartisan bill that's passed out of the House Foreign Affairs Committee unanimously, Republicans and Democrats, and we've got support in the Senate. And this is something that the way legislation should be done, instead of just putting out messaging bills that it sounds good on the face value, but when you get into the bill, you know, it doesn't really do what it was meant to do. So that's why I voted against that.
Let me read to you a portion of an op-ed, an article that was written by your colleague, I assume maybe one of your friends, Republican Congressman Will Hurd of Texas, a former CIA clandestine officer, by the way. At the same time, he writes this: over the course of my career as an undercover officer in the CIA, I saw Russian intelligence manipulate many people. I never thought I would see the day when an American president would be one of them. Obviously, a very, very strong charge from Will Hurd. Do you agree with your fellow Republican that the president, based on his comments after the summit with Putin, was actually manipulated by the Russian leader?
No, absolutely not. Will's a good friend of mine, and he can have his own opinion. We don't know what happened in that meeting ahead of time. They may have came to an agreement. I did hear the president call President Putin out on the Ukraine. They talked about the oil and gas. There's a lot more that's going to be revealed as time goes on, but I do not believe President Trump was under any influence of manipulation. I can tell you, I've sat with him. that president, President Trump, loves America, and the way he talks about this country, it's earnest, it's heartfelt, and it's real care for this country. You know, and we can go back to previous administrations. We can always go back to Medvedev and President Obama saying, wait till after the election, I'll have more flexibility. Did we go after this in this kind of vengeance to find out what he meant by that, and did we bring all that out? I think we should give it pause, allow the time to take place, and let's see where this leads us, and then we'll know more that we can respond
Congressman, I can assure you, and I was one of the reporters working on that story, when President Obama said that, we gave it a lot of attention. There was an open mic, and it was played for days and days and days. We had a lot of coverage of that. Congressman Ted Yoho, always good to have you here in the Situation Room. Thanks for joining us.
Great to hear you, Wolf. Take care.
All right, just ahead.